Now, families with children under 5 years old have apparently been the worst affected by the government's tax and benefits changes. That's according to a major news study out today. And it claims that real spending per child on early education, for instance, childcare, and also those Sure Start services has fallen by a quarter at various times over the past 4 years.
Natasha Weston went back to her teaching job after having her baby daughter, but faced a series of increasing childcare costs. She joins us now. Good morning, Natasha.
Morning.
Thanks for joining us this morning. So your little girl, who's 5 now, she's at school, of course. Talk us through the impact that the government changes had on your family and how difficult it was for you to sort childcare that was affordable.
Childcare is really, really expensive, and one of the biggest problems is that none of the employers are made to use the childcare schemes. So trying to find an employer that does use a childcare scheme and actually trying to find a nursery that honours the 15 hours when they're 3 is very difficult, because actually a lot of nurseries expect you to subsidise those hours. Before she was 3, that was very, very difficult, because I went back to work when she was 10 months old, and so the cost of childcare for her to be able to go back to work part-time and then eventually full-time was very, very expensive.
Obviously, there's 15 hours free available in terms of childcare. Do you find that that is too limited? Obviously, we have a general election coming up in 100 days. What would you like to hear the parties say to help out working mums like you?
I think it's really important to understand that the 15 hours aren't always free. So you are entitled to 15 hours, but actually the nursery can set, because the government pays them so little for those 15 hours, the nursery can expect you to top up on top of that. And actually how many jobs are 15-hour jobs? So either way, when you go back to work, you do then have to subsidise childcare. I'd like the government to, first of all, make all employers honour the childcare voucher scheme, because actually it comes out of our tax first. So if you're working, you should be able to access that childcare benefit through your work. And on top of that, it would be really nice if the government did honour the 15 hours as free childcare, rather than not paying nurseries enough to be able to honour that as the full 15 hours.
OK, that's interesting, actually. Natasha Weston, thanks very much indeed.
Well, we're joined in the studio now by Leitch, who's from the Preschool Learning Allowance. It's interesting, Natasha's saying, and it's something that we hear regularly, this 15 hours that's been lauded by the government to say, here you go, here's your free 15 hours, isn't free at all. And in fact, not only do parents often have to top up, but often the childcare nurseries don't actually honour it either.
Well, Natasha sort of hit the nail on the head there, I think, when she said that government pays such a small amount for the free entitlement. I mean, we produced a piece of research, independent research, just 2 months ago, which showed that for every 5 children that receive the free entitlement, in fact, government only funds 4. The reality is government came back and said it was an absolute nonsense, but even Natasha recognises that that's the case. And I think government seems to be in absolute denial, and they're hoping that if they just deny that there is a problem, that it will just go away. But it's not the reality. And the other thing I think that's really important is to bear in mind that other countries invest almost double what we do into our early years. So, you know, we see it firsthand. I mean, I have to say we operate 120 nurseries, predominantly in areas of deprivation, where those parents are really, really struggling.
Okay.
So we see it.
So you operate nurseries.
We do.
When people come to you and say, I want my 15 hours free childcare, do you ask them to top up financially?
No, we don't ask them to top up, but you don't have to be an accountant to work out that if government doesn't give you enough money to deliver the free hours, that you are reliant upon parents who take additional hours to make up the difference, or alternatively, providers have to subsidise it themselves. I mean, we have lots of volunteers, so obviously we use volunteers in our nurseries.
When people ask for hours over and above their 15 hours, you admit that you're charging them a little bit extra in order to subsidise the 15 hours.
It's pure logic. We have to do that, I'm afraid.
So how does this improve then? You know, how did the government turn this around and actually not only honour the 15 hours, but maybe increase the money that they're investing?
Well, there are probably 2 things that I think they could do. I think the first thing is that they could be honest. To come out and completely deny that there's a problem is not helpful, full stop. The second thing, I think, is about priorities. And I appreciate there's no bigger pot. We don't have an infinite sort of pot of money. But when you think about the Olympics, it started off with, and when we hosted the Olympics, it started off with a budget that was about £2 billion. Somehow, we ended up at over £10 billion. We found the money, and I would have thought that families with very young children are as deserving of that sort of commitment as we gave in the Olympics.
Well, Neil Leitch, it's very interesting talking to you. Thanks very much indeed, and thanks to Natasha Weston as well.